Welcome to the Savvy Podcasting for Entrepreneurs podcast, a place for podcasters to learn what's actually working in the world of podcasting and how to use their podcast to generate consistent leads in their business. I'm your host, Jenny, and I'm so excited you're here.
Hey, savvies, welcome back to another episode of the podcast. In today's episode, we're talking all about how to politely decline guest pitches. So if your inbox is anything like mine, you're constantly getting pitches that are less than ideal. So your options are to either completely ignore them, which is totally fine to do on occasion. I can't say that I've never done that before because I definitely have. Or you can respond and let them down easy. And I know sometimes if the pitch is really off, I've responded and given them some unwanted feedback. But I found that usually that ends up being a waste of time because they did not ask for that feedback and they usually just don't respond and probably think I am not a nice lady, which is not true. I'm just trying to help them, but it might not always come across that way in written form. So let's dive into how to politely decline guest pitches so that your people who are reaching out to you aren't left hanging. Okay, so there's two ways. So the first one is if it's not a good fit for right now, but might be in the future. So you may get some pitches in your inbox that aren't a great fit for the current time. Maybe you covered something like that recently and you wouldn't be revisiting it for a while, or it's something you'd like to cover in the future, but not quite yet. So if that's the case, you want to make sure you don't burn that bridge, obviously, right? So if that is the case, you want to tell them that you appreciate them reaching out and that this is a topic you definitely be interested in having on your podcast in the future. However, you aren't ready for that topic quite yet. You can either tell them you'll circle back when you're ready, or you can tell them to reach out to you again in however long you think it would be before you need it. So 30, 60, 90 days, or even like in 3 months or 6 months or whatever that is, or if you want them to reach out to you. If you're going to circle back, you can just say, hey, I'll circle back on this topic when I'm ready. So that's up to you, whatever feels good for you there. But you don't want to burn that bridge. So you want to make sure to respond and let them know that it is something you would like to discuss in the future. It's just not a right now type thing. And the second one is if it's not relevant at all and you don't want them to pitch you again. So if the topic or topics proposed make absolutely no sense for your audience, then it is okay to just respond back and say that. You don't need to be rude, but you can just say, I don't think that topic's a good fit for my audience. You really don't need to go into too much detail if you don't want to. Sometimes I will go into a lot of detail. Sometimes I won't. It just depends on the day, but you don't have to. You don't need to feel forced to go into a ton of detail. Literally, you can just say it's not a good fit. I usually say, hi, thanks so much for reaching out. I appreciate it. Unfortunately, I don't think this is a good fit for my audience because my audience is blah, blah, blah. In my case, podcasters or podcast managers. So these topics just don't make much sense, but I appreciate you reaching out nonetheless. Thank you for your time. Warmly, or best, Jenny. So it doesn't need to be anything too complicated. It can literally be super duper simple. And as long as you're polite and kind, but still like firm, so they're not sitting there pressing for more details or trying to convince you that they should be on your show or their client should be on your show, I think that's good enough. So I would love to know, how do you usually handle bad guest pitches? I know we all get them. So I'd love to know how you handle them. Do you typically ignore them or do you respond and let them down gently? What do you do? Let me know by heading on over to Podcasting for Entrepreneurs on Instagram. Send me a DM. I'd love to hear from you. This is always a topic that people struggle with because they don't want to be rude, but they also don't want to keep getting these terrible pitches. So there's a way to let people down easy so that they're not constantly following up and pitching you with that same terrible topic again and still be nice about it and not be a jerk. So yeah, if you want to check out the show notes for this episode, you can head to savvypodcastingforentrepreneurs.com, and I will see you in the next episode.
If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcast player like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Stitcher, and leave a review. You can find us at savvypodcastingforentrepreneurs.com and on Facebook at Savvy Podcasting for Entrepreneurs and Instagram at Savvy Podcasting. Make sure to join our free Facebook community for podcasters by going to savvypodcastingforentrepreneurs.com/community and join in on the exclusive community just for Savvy Podcasting for Entrepreneurs listeners. I'll see you there.